Hello,
Hey,
welcome to TechJourney Insights with me, Beverly Clark, and my co-host.
Rebecca Franks.
And today we are going to delve into the world of tech and share with you our tech journeys and our insights along the way. So we always start off with a question. And today's question is, what is grabbing our attention? So, Rebecca, what is grabbing your attention?
Um, I was looking at period tracking apps and
Oh,
I was
yes.
thinking, now I find them useful. Well, I mean, I do use one and I tend to only put like the first day. I don't put any more data into it because I don't want people getting all of my data about it, but I do find them useful. Um, but I know that there's lots of issues in potentially other countries where there's strict abortion laws coming in and things like that, and people being worried about being tracked in that sense. So what do you think about them?
Well, I think it's a women's rights issue here, okay? Because I'm old
Mm,
enough to remember the time when I had my first period. It was, a diary, and I then write down the days and keep track of it. And then I had
yeah.
my eyes open. I've got two daughters, and when the youngest had started her period, she, I was trying to have a conversation with her, and she said, "Mom, what's the matter with you?" I've got an app. And I said, "Pardon? What's that?" And essentially, my world changed when they introduced me to these apps. And at first, I
Mm,
was a bit hesitant. And then I thought, oh, I quite like this. No more paper. But
yeah.
then we get to the questions. And
Mm,
who's got my data? What are they doing with it? How is it being used? And the answers are not transparent to me. So, on the
yeah.
face of it, it's easy, it's convenient, it's always
Mm,
there. But what else is happening?
yeah. It is concerning, and I think in certain states in America where there's quite a lot of going on politically, is particularly around
Mm,
abortion and banning abortions, and the fact that potentially, if you're tracking your period on an app and it comes up that you've missed a period, and then suddenly your period comes back, potentially you've gone to another state and had an abortion,
mm,
which could potentially lead to you being criminalized because of that, and that data being there and allowing you to track it. So I know
mm.
that some period apps have made sort of a public stand on that, like that they won't share your data and things like that. But I don't know, I just feel like you can never really trust that. And I think if I was in that in that situation, I probably wouldn't use an app. I would just go back to the traditional, putting it on your calendar, a paper
Mark it
calendar or
off to the
diary.
calendar. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Because, it is worrying because you don't know what's going to happen to that data. But wouldn't it be great if we didn't have to worry about this and they could use that data for like medical reasons and actually improving lives for women? Wouldn't it be great if
Well,
that
yeah, I need this transparency. I need to be told how a company having this data, how it's being used, what are they doing with it? I
yeah.
like the whole prediction thing where it tells me when my period is coming. But then you're
Mm,
entering in a lot of data. What's your mood like?
mm,
Breast tenderness. How heavy is the flow of your period? Lots of things. What's
mm.
happening here?
Yeah.
Uh,
And I
uh,
think that's it. Like if every woman in the world did that, or everyone who has periods in the world did that, and the data was used for good to monitor, okay, well, what happens to the average woman? Like, what can we do to help them? What symptoms they have? Can we make predictions about things? Like, if we were using it for a good medical reason to make women's lives better, I'd be 100% all for it. And I think we should all be doing it. But we aren't safe as women in
no.
this kind of situation. We're just not, like, we don't know what's going to happen to that data. So yeah, unless you can 100% tell me my data is not leaving my phone and it's just staying in the on my phone and it's not going anywhere else. And even then, I don't know if I would believe I would believe anyone anyway if that's what they said. But
Well,
again, that's why I only put the start date, because I just think, like, for me it's not as risky, but I know for other women in other countries
it
it is
would be,
risky
yeah.
to do that.
And this
Yeah.
is the thing. I mean, think about how many years worth of data we have entered into these apps. And, for anyone
Mm,
listening, how much data have you entered into period tracking apps? Now, are we
yeah.
any wiser as a result of
Mm,
entering in that data? That's my question to
yeah.
anyone listening. Are we any wiser? And if the answer is no, then what is actually happening?
Yeah. Yeah.
I can see no benefit to my life. I mean, I can see that the algorithm is getting better at predicting when my period is coming. And
Mm,
especially since I'm a bit older and I'm in that perimenopausal stage, it's getting
yeah.
better at predicting. So it's being trained, but
Mm.
I probably would have worked that out myself with my calendar, my pen.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering what's going on. I will know how I feel. I'll know my moods. I'll know my breast tenderness. I'll just know how I feel. So do I actually need an app to tell me this? Is my question.
Mm,
But I'm still using it because we're in this world of tech. So,
yeah.
let us know in the comments because I think this is a real big one. Who actually needs to know about my period and why?
Yeah. Well, yeah. It's a good
Yeah.
question. Yeah. It's your private information and that, ultimately. But the only benefit I can think is to just for medical reasons, but you just know it's not going to get used for that, do you? And that's the scary part of it,
Well,
isn't
you
it?
know what? If there are any nurses or doctors in tech, um, reach out. Let us know what your thoughts are on this topic. I think it's a biggie. And to
Definitely.
address it. Talking about this, I mean, we've both just had lunch breaks and come back in and, been out on walks and things like that. And I don't know if you've observed, but the world is getting noisier.
Mm,
And what I mean by this is that lots of people out, having their walks, lunch, evening, early morning, but they're all glued to devices. Some are having full chats, video chats with their friends. So the purpose of a walk is to sort of, get some headspace. You're getting away from your desk. You're unwinding, de-stressing. But people are having these full conversations. So now a walk around the park is much noisy. I've really noticed it. I don't know if you've
yeah.
noticed that
No, I have
also.
noticed it. There's two things. So the first one is I don't understand why everyone uses a phone like this now with their phone on speakerphone. Why do they do that? I just
I can
I mean,
imagine.
in a way, like if you're worried about radiation or something like that, and radio waves being close to your ear, I kind of get that side of it. But how is it helpful to anyone that you're having a conversation like that? Because you can't hear the person speaking very well. So then you have to turn your volume up even louder, and you're having to speak louder because you're holding it too far away. So there's all that going on, which is annoying. Um, I think potentially people are trying to do sort of well-being walks and doing like office meetings while they're walking, which kind of, but like is your job so stressful and packed that you haven't got time to do a 20-minute walk like that doesn't involve tech? That's a worry. That's not good for your employees' well-being if that's what you're doing. Um, so there's something going on there. But then I mean, like two of my friends, they like playing this game on their phone, which is a bit like an augmented reality style
Mm.
game where you go and hunt things on your walk and you get like you get points and stuff for finding things, and they love it. They're out and about and they're enjoying themselves. But like for me, I just like being out in nature and
Oh,
just
yes.
hearing birds and the trees, and just smelling the fresh smells and all that kind of stuff. That's what I'm on a walk for.
Mm.
Like that is what helps my well-being. That's what resets me for the
Mm.
afternoon. So if I had something in my phone, because I mean, like the amount of time, because I work remotely as you do, you're on a screen all day.
Yeah,
You
yeah, yeah.
need to have like a decent break away from a screen, where you're just taking in like nature, which is
Well, this is
which is
it.
nice.
You walk along, you can hear bird song. If you just stop by any thicket of trees, you will more or less hear a bird song. You'll also see a squirrel darting across the road, or sometimes I think you've mentioned, you can see rabbits when you're on a walk, and this
Mm.
is nature. It's so beautiful,
Yeah.
and instead of having this, as you said, this phone in front of you, and
Mm.
it's intrusive. And I remember, I was listening to Stephen Bartlett, and he just said, your health comes before anything else.
Yeah.
So you've got to underline health.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the way I do run things. I've noticed when I go to the gym, and it mystifies me. Frequently, people come into the gym after work, and they will stand over a machine with their phone, and they'll be scrolling. And do you know what? I've completed all my exercises, and they're still standing over the machine scrolling.
Yeah.
How on earth is that effective use of time? What are you looking for? But selecting
Yeah.
a music track? Come on.
Mm.
Um, Talking to someone? It's all the time. It happens. So then their time they had carved out for their physical and mental well-being is sucked away. It's gone because they're on devices.
Mm.
So sometimes you really need to make that conscious decision, device free. That device can go into your locker when you're at the gym, or it
Yeah.
needs to be on silent if you absolutely must have it when you're on a walk, as
Mm.
a safety thing, if
Yeah.
that's what is a concern. But really, it's tech intrusion and device intrusion. No, no, no. Be really mindful, is what I'd say. It's quite shocking. Observe it. You I'd love anyone to tell me why you need to have these devices and people scrolling. It's mindfulness. If you're just standing over your bench press, but you're just scrolling, you haven't
Mm.
exercised. It's a shocker.
Yeah, well, that's it. You can't be putting enough effort into one or the other, and that's why you can't have this split attention. Put
Mm.
all your attention into one thing and then have a break, and put your attention into your break and chilling out, and having that carved out bit of time. Yeah, but I mean, kind of those sort of the game apps that I think they're good for getting people out and in outside and doing things. If you're somebody who doesn't do that, and maybe it's like a kind of incentive to go out. But yeah, I really wish somebody could tell me why we use phones like this nowadays with the speakerphone. I don't. This makes no sense to me. I don't want to hear. I don't want to hear what your conversation.
I know it's become so noisy, it's so intrusive, and this comes back to some of the other things we've discussed on previous episodes. This whole screen usage and screen
Mm,
time. What are we doing? If you're on that walk and you're still using your device, that's more screen time.
yeah.
What are we doing?
Yeah.
It's I would say that's perhaps a bit of misuse of tech, and
Yeah, I think so. Like, yeah, I do. Maybe if you want to do that, maybe do half and half. So do half a walk like that and half, so at least there's some
it's
balance,
just
and then move it.
complicated.
I know, yeah. Just try and figure something out so you're not doing it all the time. It can, yeah, it's a bit worrying, really.
Leave the device at home.
Yeah, I mean, like
Silence it.
I never have a device at a dinner table, and
Oh
I
no.
never have a device on a walk. I mean, it's nearby, but it's not like glued to me, looking at it kind of thing. But yeah, I do find it difficult with the TV though. If you're watching some long thing that you're getting bored of, and just gotta look on my notifications, gotta. But
Terrible.
like, I
Oh,
find that one hard.
notifications. No,
Oh,
they're a bugbear. I turn them off. Everything is turned off. All
yeah,
notifications. I go
yeah,
to my phone and I will look at it. I no, I don't want things binging and tinging.
yeah,
It's too much noise. I need to just slow
chill
things
out.
down, calm things down.
Yeah,
Actually, so we've come to that point in the podcast where we're going to share some of our tips to help you along your tech journey and your entrepreneurial journeys, and just to basically lift everyone else up with tips to help you to survive and move forward. So, Rebecca, have you got any tips to share?
yeah. So when I first set up the business, one of the things that I was really happy that I did straight away was I got an accountant. which can seem like a bit of a cost, like an outlay at the beginning, is, you know, worrying, okay, now I'm gonna have to pay for an accountant every month. But actually, if you've never done it before, if you've never done your own taxes and that kind of stuff before, it's really useful to have an accountant. So I definitely think that that is a good investment for a business. And if you can get to an accountant where you can pay monthly, it becomes a bit easier
Oh,
then, because
yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
sometimes people don't pay for their accountant till right at the end, just before the tax, and then you end up having to pay this like a big payment. Whereas if you can do it monthly, it becomes a little bit easier. So that's been helpful, just having someone that you can quickly fire off a question, you know, and get an answer, and make sure that you're paying your tax in the right way and all that kind of stuff. So that's been really useful.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, my accountant, he's fantastic. Maybe that
Mm.
explains why he drives an Aston Martin. So,
Yeah.
but no, he set everything up. You can ask those all important questions, and
Mm.
keeps you need to stay legal at all times with
Yeah.
the government and everything. So definitely an investment in accountant. I couldn't agree more. I'd also say a mentor. And
Mm.
mentors at different stages and for different things in your career.
Yeah.
And be able to recognize that you don't and won't always know everything.
Mm-hmm.
And there are people who are better than you, and you perhaps a collaboration or just learn from them. And that's really important. You know, I mean, for example, you're fantastic at laying out, you've got an artistic quality. So I've frequently asked you things about, you know, physical design things. I'm like, oh, I can learn from that. So that's really important to recognize your own strengths. And it's something that I am, when I'm coaching, I say, well, what are your strengths? And if you don't know what your strengths are, let's sort of delve into that. And then realizing who you would need in your personal network to help you, to complement you also. So, you know, help, complement. They're all sort of moving pieces of the same thing. So, yeah, there's two tips: the accounting and the mentors. Any others?
Okay, so we do it for our business, and yeah, I think you do this as well. We do a lot of contract work, so that involves a lot of writing content for other people,
Mm,
potentially
mm,
on various different things. So I would say make it really clear at the beginning of a project how many revisions you are going to do. Because sometimes you can get into sort of a cycle of revisions, which ends up costing you money because you're having to spend extra
mm,
time. Um, and, you know, a lot of that comes down to making sure that everyone's clear about the expectations of the project at the beginning.
mhm,
You know, so there's a lot of conversation a lot of the time at the beginning to just get that right. Like, what do you want? What do you need? And making sure that's right. And then when it comes to revisions, being very clear, like, you know, I in this costing, it's just one revision and one feedback, one set of revision. And if you want more, it's going to cost this much. Just to it helps both sides, because it means that when that person is giving you feedback and they're going through your work, they're going to make sure, because they know they're only going to get one revision, they're going to make sure that they've really looked at it carefully, and they're giving you that feedback of the thing that you definitely need to do. So it's
mm,
not like they haven't just quickly looked at it on their lunch break and gone, yeah, that's all right, maybe change this, and then they realize later on. So it helps everyone, I think, in that situation. So being really, really clear. And I know, like, that this is advice a lot of different sort of service industry type things.
mhm,
You know, if you're a podcast editor, a video editor, like anything to do with production or content creation, getting that really clear about how many revisions you've budgeted for in that contract is
mhm,
really, really important, so you don't get stuck. Because, you know, when you set up a contract, you say, you know, in your mind when that deliverable date is, and you
oh
you
yeah.
you don't want that deliverable date to move, because if it does move, you're then doing two contracts at once because you pulled out some other work from somewhere else, and you're spending extra time. So you can get yourself in a right mess if you don't get that right at the beginning and make it really, really clear. So I definitely would say to anyone setting up a business that does some kind of service work, it's to be really clear about that kind of thing, and getting that sort of list of things that they want, that user requirements, getting that clear at the beginning is really, really crucial, I think.
Absolutely. You know, that you've described that so well in perfect clarity, and reading the fine print and
Yeah.
questioning what it is that you have read. You know, I've come
Yes.
across contracts where it said, we'd like you to do X, Y, and Z, but this list is not exhaustive. Needless to say, I wouldn't sign a contract like that. If it's not exhaustive, when does it end? So, you know, so that you need to nail those things down. The best contracts
And
I've had
yeah.
is where you've agreed what's going to be done, when it's going to be delivered and reviewed in that time, and then you continue on. And there's no complaints. You get to the end, you bill, they've received the product, and you've developed your own portfolio and done a great job. And that's the way I think all business should work. And I've heard it even affecting people, sort of DJs who are delivering events out in, you know, public spaces, with things like how far the sound is going to travel, and all sorts of things. You've always got to be absolutely clear, whichever industry you're working in, what you're delivering.
And I think as well, like, when you do a lot of contract works, you read a lot of contracts.
Mm,
And it's about, especially at the beginning, it's about knowing you don't have to sign that contract that they've given you. You
yeah,
can question, like, it, and you must read them. Never sign them without reading them. Like
absolutely.
this,
Oh,
this
yeah.
is one of those situations where you read everything. But if you see a bullet point and you're not quite sure what it means, then there's something wrong with the contract, because it should be really clear in the wording exactly what it means. So there's nothing wrong with you questioning that and saying, "Hey, I don't quite get this. Do you mean this?" And they clarify it, and you've either then got that on an email record that they've said it, or you get it
100%.
written, the
Yeah.
clarification. Yeah, I mean, first, like ideally you want it in the contract, but if it's in an email, you've got a backup as well. But it's really being clear on that and getting that right. And you don't have to say yes to the first contract. And just by questioning it, you're not going to lose your contract just because you've questioned one little
No.
thing, unless they're determined to say, no, I'm not changing it. And then at that point, do you want to work with them if they're being like that anyway? So that, getting that right and negotiating that is just really, really essential. And it's really hard to be brave about that at the beginning, because you're like,
Mhm.
oh, I've been given a contract, I must sign it, or else I'm going to not get the work. But that's not the case at all. It is very, very normal. I'd say pretty much every contract we have signed for the business, I've queried at least one bullet point and got it changed.
So
Like, so, you
you
know,
must do that.
yeah,
Absolutely, because
yeah,
it's your livelihood, and you need things
yeah,
to be right, and you're trading on your reputation also. And surely the other side would like to have a smooth interaction, a smooth process. So I'd say it's really
yeah,
important. And
yeah.
you mentioned something, you're sort of thinking, oh no, I can't question it. You know, they said they're going
Mm.
to pay me X amount, and if I question it, I won't get it. Well, sometimes it's better to walk away.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And it will give you the answer, because you know you're working with a good company if they're quite happy to make changes, and they're going to listen to you.
Mm.
So that is always a good sign if they are amenable and things like that. And that's, or if the deadline's a bit tight and you say, hold on, actually, this is a bit tight, can we move it? If
Oh,
they're, you
yeah, yeah,
know that it's going to be a good relationship if they're happy to negotiate at the beginning. But yeah,
absolutely. But
definitely some
you know what?
good
This brings me on to something, talking about work. And just
mm,
thinking about the future of work and what's going on. And I, I would add the tip to always ensure that you're aware of trends in your industry and to know
mm,
what's going on. So,
yeah,
industry trends are so important, because what that actually helps you to do is to stay ahead of the curve
yeah,
and to be relevant. And that's a tip. You need to know what's coming. How do I position myself? And also, what are my passions and interests? Because every
mm-hmm,
industry's got lots going on in it. So it isn't, you're not a sort of jack of all trades and master of none sort of thing, you know. I mean, and talking about future proofing, I noticed there was a headline the other day about and back to artificial intelligence,
Mm.
Microsoft and Sainsbury's are having a unique collaboration where they're going to be using generative AI. Now, it could have been a bit clickbaity,
Yeah.
the article, but I was curious because I thought, oh, what's going to be the impact upon work
Mm.
using generative AI in retail? So, in Googling and trying to find out a bit more, because this is what we mean about the impact of work and of tech upon work. So, I was just like thinking, well, perhaps in recommendations, recommender systems. Not sure what's sort of coming to your mind on this one. Of what?
Yeah, it's a tricky one because if it's specific to generative AI, then you're very specific to it's about generating content,
Mm,
aren't you? So potentially generating adverts based on
yeah.
data, maybe like for specific things that are coming up or popular things at that point in time. Um, if
Mm,
it was an LLM, like some kind of perhaps to recipe makers, like recommending products to you, like by
mm.
having a conversation maybe. But
Yeah, you mentioned
yeah.
real content. If we're generating more
Mm,
visual content, does that mean that people who are creators of content in the traditional
mm,
sense, does that mean they're sort of edged out? Or is this a new
yeah.
sort of string to their bow? Um, and a client can then request traditional content or AI content as opposed to just content. And then
Yeah.
we need to be able
Yeah.
to look at the pros and cons of each type of content. If why would a client want AI content over traditional content? And I think it's a really interesting debate.
Yeah, definitely. I personally think people are going to get generative AI fatigue and want the authenticity back. Um, I definitely think that will happen at some point. I mean, vinyls have come back because people want authenticity in music. I do think it is going to go a bit full circle, but potentially the generative AI will get better and it will be able to be a bit more authentic. But I don't see how it can when it's built on, you know, other people's creativity and it's been what it's been fed, hasn't it? So I think it would be nice if something is AI generated, especially in advertising or media in some way that it said AI generated. So at least you
Yeah,
knew.
that is coming.
Um,
I think
yeah.
TikTok and many of them are building this in. But my
Mm,
concern is I'll wait and see what happens when it's actually rolled out properly. That it's hidden. That when something is AI generated, those words are there, but it's hidden, and you actually have to go looking for it, as opposed to being
mm.
right there. This is AI generated. Now that would help an awful lot more. I feel if it's right there in front of you, so you know.
Yeah. Yeah, it is a tricky one, and there will be people who do graphic design for Sainsbury's that might be thinking, hang on a minute, are they going to use generative AI now to make the adverts and that kind of thing, and they're going to lose their job? I mean, I suppose in that situation, if it's coming anyway, maybe it's time to train yourself on using those tools yourself so that you can adapt them and make them better.
Mm,
So you gain that skill. Um, and we always say that with anything we tech, it's always going to come, like whether you like it or not. So
absolutely,
it's
yeah.
better to just get on board and start training yourself in those skills so that you're ready for that change. Um, but it's the authenticity thing. Everything you can I can tell if something's been
Oh, yeah.
made in ChatGPT, and like I know straight away because I know exactly what it's going to look like. And the skill is using ChatGPT and it's still looking authentic like you've written it. That is a skill because
Yes.
if you're just typing a couple of sentences in and then you're just putting it in a blog post, whatever it's spat out,
Mm,
then it's going to look very much like ChatGPT and it's going to all be fluff all the way down. There won't actually be a point to it, and but if you've been quite clever of it and you've given it some parameters, you've said what structure you want, you've said what style of
mm,
writing, and you've put that in, you fed it back out, maybe you've given it some sample work that you've already written so that you can feed it back in your sort of style, that kind of stuff. That is a skill that you can learn so that you're still doing the same job, but it's making you more efficient. But I think then if you're doing it as like on a day rate, and then you're becoming more efficient, you're actually taking money away from yourself, because a job that you might have got paid for 2 days, you're now getting only 1 day. So,
Mm.
that's where
Yeah.
it becomes an issue.
Financial impact. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's quite, I mean, if anyone is, whoever's listening, if you work in retail or in any sector and you would love to hear about the impact of artificial intelligence in your sector, that's one of the reasons I wrote the course that I've got on Udemy, to get
Yeah.
people to think about what's going on within their sector, because it's
Mm,
so important that you really consider the impact
yeah.
that is happening on you and your immediate surroundings.
Mm-hmm.
And another one that I saw a headline, it was about the demand on electricity and energy from AI. It's so there are definitely countries who are leading with AI and some that are not. And in some of
Mm,
the countries that are really utilizing AI, they're using more energy than small countries.
yep.
There is a massive imbalance there. So who should be caring for the environment? Should there be someone caring more or less? Or should we all be caring equally, because we're not actually utilizing this tool equally?
It's the water as well, like the amount of
It's cooling.
water that's being
Yes.
used. I mean, that is a worry when there's droughts and in certain areas of the world, because the water's been used for AI, like to cool AI, the servers where the AI is.
Mm,
That's quite worrying as well. I mean, we can get renewable energy, and water is water. Like there is a cycle, but we
yeah.
need to protect it and think about the ecosystem of that and how that's working. And if we are using it over here, what are we doing to make sure it gets replenished and back into the natural environment? So yeah, lots to unpick. But I mean, one of those things is definitely renewable energy.
Mm,
Like, how can we put more effort into renewable energy and trying to be a bit more eco-friendly that way?
yeah. It's weird, isn't it? We've both got backgrounds as educators. I think that's why our minds just keep going, thinking, what is actually going on here? There's something
Mm,
going on out there in industry, and then we've had to, when we were in a classroom, to distill it
yeah.
into a format that children can understand and question. And then, just as citizens, it's what is actually happening here.
Mm,
I don't want to get all dystopian, but I keep thinking that perhaps this water consumption, a few decades perhaps down the road, we're going to discover that this wasn't actually the right option for us after all. Maybe I'm
yeah.
wrong, but I need someone to start telling us this. Why don't I know this when I watch the news every day and I, go looking for this information?
Because I mean, it's all hidden, isn't it? It's in the cloud.
Exactly.
It's in the cloud.
Well, the cloud is a physical space, so what's
I
going
know.
on there?
Yeah, I know. But now, like, most people think, oh, it's just some mystical place that's not a physical space that's using energy all the time.
I know. The
Yeah,
cloud, right? Actually, that's a good note on which to end today's podcast. What's in the
yeah.
cloud? What's going on
Mm.
in the cloud? So I'm Beverly Clark, and you are?
Rebecca Franks.
And together we have brought you TechJourney Insights. I hope you've enjoyed our hints and tips and the discussion. Please reach out if you'd like to work with any of our companies in any of the capacities in which we work. So head to our websites to have a look, and also let us know what you would like us to talk about. We've covered a wide variety of topics today: women's health, we've just done climate, we've done jobs. What would you like us to cover? So hope to see you again soon, and listen to us on another episode of TechJourney Insights.
Bye.
Bye.